Hey folks, this is Kalani. Patch 10.1.5 is right around the corner, but we still have a lot of class changes, buffs and nerfs coming through with each PTR build, and this week is no exception. But with the patch being so close, that means these might be some of the last buffs and nerfs we see before the patch goes live, which makes them even more important. There are also some interesting updates to the Mega Dungeon, which makes it even harder, but also potentially more rewarding at the same time. And Blizzard is celebrating the start of summer by adding in more goodies to the trading post, including some previously unobtainable cosmetic options. There's a lot to talk about, so let's break it all down. Now before we jump in, be sure to hit up that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. Let's start with this week's class changes. We've got quite a few buffs, a handful of nerfs, and some changes for the hybrids and their healing potential. For the Druids, Balance, Feral and Guardian had their mana regen reduced down to 1% per second from 1.3% per second, so in addition to all of the other changes to limit hybrid healing, their mana will also regenerate slower, which means they won't be able to cast as many heals over the duration of encounters or fights. That's all for the Druids this week though. For the Evokers, Scholar Adaptation will store 40% more total power, the tooltip will now be accurate, and the damage will also be amplified by Devastation's Mastery, which could be potentially interesting. Augmentation and Devastation will also see the same mana regen nerf, and then Preservation 2% has been changed to increase the healing of Reversion by 35% instead of increasing the crit heal chance. Moving on to the mages, all three specs have a handful of changes. For Arcane, Arcane Barrage damage was increased by 6% and it will no longer have a 3-second cooldown. Resonance was nerfed down to a 12% increase per target hit, down from 15%. Arcane Explosion damage was reduced by 6% and Arcane Orb was also nerfed by 6% as well. For Fire, Pyroblast damage was increased by 4%, Ignite is up 3%, Fireball was increased by 4%, and Intensifying Flames is now implemented. So Fire is getting back a bit more of that damage from the nerfs in earlier builds. It's a bit of both for Frost. Ice Lance damage is up 8%, Flurry damage is down 6%. Cryopathy now highlights Ray of Frost at max stacks, Chain Reaction was doubled up to a 2% bonus, and Brain Freeze bonus damage is also down to 50% from 65%. Slick Ice was changed slightly, Coldest Snap was updated, and Ebb and Bolt was just entirely removed from the talent tree. Now before we continue, today's video is sponsored by Mech Arena. Mech Arena pits massive robots against each other in a free-to-play online shooter that you can play on Android, iOS or desktop. Suit up your mech with a variety of destructive weapons to dominate your foes. If you click the link in the description or scan our QR code on screen, you'll get a special bonus worth $30 including a skin, a Prodigy crate and 5,000 credits. Download Mech Arena today and I'll see you in the arena. Now getting back to the video, the Monks Brewmaster has a couple more changes to press the advantage, and Windwalker 2 set now has a caster only visual to improve the visibility. Paladins are seeing a lot of changes for Holy. Light of Dawn healing was reduced further, Tears Deliverance was reduced as well, though the way these notes specifically are worded is a bit weird. Blessed Focus increases the healing of Glimmer of Light by 25%, Awakening is now a 1 rank talent with a 12 stack max down from 20 at that old rank 2 cap, and Sanctified Wrath is now a choice node with Awakening. Aura of Mercy was buffed up by 50%, but Aura Mastery Effectiveness for Mercy was cut in half. Glimmer of Light's damage and healing were both reduced, Beacon of Light was knocked down to 25%, and Beacon of Virtue can target 4 allies up from 3, and then for Ret and Prot, both of them are going to see that same hybrid mana regen nerf as well. And then to round out this week's changes, Shamans have some changes to abilities to make sure they won't break crowd control when they're not supposed to, and the hybrid specs have the same mana regen nerfs, and then there's also a 3% bonus to all resto healing snuck right in at the end there to help offset the nerfs to Ancestral Guidance. Now remember that all of these changes will come through with patch 10.1.5, that patch releases on July 11th, so we don't have too much longer to wait. It's also worth noting that the PTR build is now marked as a release candidate, which usually means it is a finished build. This is what we're going to see in the patch. Most of the big systems and changes are in, and we won't see many updates before patch day, but class changes are actually usually the big exception here. The dev team has been making last minute changes with hotfix fixes for the last couple of patches, so I would expect to see some last minute balance tuning and changes next week just before the patch goes live, so stay tuned for that. This week we also have some quick updates for the new Mega Dungeon coming in the patch Dawn of the Infinite. To start with, there have been a lot of balance tuning changes in the last couple of builds, mainly to make the Mega Dungeon significantly harder. From the data mining on Wowhead we can see some boss abilities damage have been doubled. We have debuffs going from a 200% damage increase to 600% damage increase. Some abilities have been increased by up to 4 times, which is a little nuts. I guess some of these abilities just weren't hitting hard enough for the PTR, or maybe the dev team had the dungeon balanced a little easier for PTR testing to make sure players could actually get through it, and now they're buffing it to make it hard for the patch release. We're not too sure, but I can say from our experience working through the dungeon, some of the bosses were definitely too easy. They kind of fell over without us really doing much, but some of them were actually quite problematic, even for our team of Mythic Raiders. Your item level is scaled down during the PTR testing, which didn't help our endeavours, but some of the bosses had tight DPS checks, and if you mess up mechanics or stand in the wrong place, you are definitely going to die. So adding all of these big boss buffs on top of that experience means the dungeon will probably be quite hard for a lot of folks. This honestly doesn't surprise me though. The dev team are setting up the Mega Dungeon to be a difficult endgame progression option for small tight-knit groups. It's been touted almost as a 5-player raid, and a lot of the bosses do have mechanics that are reminiscent of raid bosses. You're going to have to handle each mechanic in the right way, otherwise you'll start wiping very quickly. Small groups haven't had a lot of progression options outside of Mythic Plus, which can get quite boring quite quickly due to the repetitive nature of running the same dungeon over and over again. The highest tier of raiding also requires 20 players, so not exactly small group friendly, and 10-player Mythic doesn't seem likely to return anytime soon. The dev team are trying to plug that gameplay gap with the Mega Dungeon. The rewards are also on par with some of the higher tiers of raiding. Loot is currently dropping at 437 and it can be upgraded up to 441. That puts it on par with heroic raid loot, and some of the items have special effects that will increase their power dramatically. So the Mega Dungeon is shaping up to be a difficult progression option in 10.15 with rewards to match the difficulty. Now, if you're worried about not getting to see the Mega Dungeon anytime soon due to this apparent difficulty, you actually won't have to wait too long. If you really don't want to try to do the dungeon on Mythic, you only have to wait until the next patch, 10.17, for the Mega Dungeon to get split up into 2 wings and the heroic mode enabled for you to queue into it. The dungeon should be much easier and the item level rewards will be quite a bit lower, but at least you'll get to work through the dungeon, see how the story progresses, and find out what happens to the Bronze Dragonfly and Nosdormu. There are still a few reasons to push yourself to clear the dungeon on Mythic mode though, because the dev team have included some interesting achievements for the Mega Dungeon this time around. There are 2 that are pretty simple, defeat specific bosses in the Mega Dungeon, but then there are 2 which basically provide you with a cutting edge style achievement. The Defender of the Timeways achievement requires you to clear the Mega Dungeon on Mythic before the release of the next raid tier. The next raid tier should come through in 10.2, so that would give us a good chunk of time to get that achievement done. The achievement rewards you with the title of the Infinite, which is a pretty cool title. I could see a lot of folks running around with that one specifically, but there's another achievement. Put that thing back where it came from. Within a single run, defeat all bosses in the Dawn of the Infinite and restore 4 time-lost artifacts, whatever that means, without any player dying on Mythic. So you have to clear the dungeon, do some extra legwork, and do it all without dying. We haven't seen this kind of undying achievement for a little while now, and I think it is fun to see it make a return. The reward for this achievement was added in this week's build, and it looks to be an ensemble for the infinite colours of the 10.1 Outdoor World gear set, so that's how we're going to get our hands on that one. The ensemble also seems to reward all 4 armor types at once, so you would only have to do the achievement on 1 character to unlock all 4 sets of this specific colour scheme. I would maybe have expected a cool mount, or maybe a full mount customization option. That would have been really cool, but I guess a special transmog set is nice as well. Moving on, we have a special sale or event going on with the trading post for the next 2 months. There are more rewards active in the trading post for both July and August, and we can earn more traders tender than usual. Some of this stuff is actually super valuable too, like the Spectral Tiger Cub pet. We have several mounts like Tyrael's Charger, so if you haven't managed to pick that one up yet, here's another chance for you. There are recolors of very popular transmog options, new transmogs that we haven't seen before, and just all in all, it's a packed traders post this month. There are definitely some cool items in here, so I would log on, go to the trading post and see what that's all about, but I am most looking forward to this month's Traveler's Log reward. It's an updated Netherwing dragon model, and it's also a dragon riding mount, so it's like a special twofer. A favourite dragon model is going to get an update, but we also get another dragon riding mount to ride around on. We're one step closer to flying around on almost whatever mount we want with the dragon riding system. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that open dragon riding is part of patch 10.1.7 or 10.2 at the very least, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Either way, that trading post reward is definitely one to go after this month. Now, to announce this little event, Blizzard had a preview video which included various other goodies that you might be interested in, like the Spirit of Competition, which is completely unobtainable since 2008 I believe, a Blood Troll Transmog set, which is definitely new, and the Alabaster mounts, which were part of a previous promotion. With these not currently available on the trading post for July, it's safe to assume they'll be included with a round of rewards in August. So when the month ticks over, we should be able to get even more awesome rewards from the trading post. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about in this video is BlizzCon. We finally have more information about how getting BlizzCon tickets is going to work this year, as well as how much they're going to cost you. Let's start with that part, because hoo-wee, BlizzCon is getting expensive. So this year's tickets will cost $2.99 for the general admission or $7.99 for the Portal Pass. The general admission gives you access to all halls, early access to the BlizzCon store, in-game goodies, and a backpack. If you opt for the Portal Pass, you'll also gain access to a private viewing lounge with private concessions, gameplay experiences, support, an employee meet and greet, as well as a separate registration and security line and early entry to the convention. That definitely sounds like it would streamline and enrich your BlizzCon experience, but you definitely pay out the wazoo for those extra add-ons. I know I'm not alone when I say these ticket prices kind of shocked me. I know BlizzCon is expensive, it's definitely a treat, but even if you go back to the last BlizzCon, which was in 2019, the general admission was $2.29 and the Portal Pass was $5.50, so prices have definitely increased quite considerably since BlizzCon was last held in person. Hopefully it's worth it for all those folks who opt to go in person, but if you can't fork over the dollary dues for a $300 ticket, plus whatever it would cost to travel there to get there, plus a hotel if you can find one, plus food and drink for the weekend, and whatever else you need to pay for during your SoCal stay, if you can't afford that, BlizzCon 2023 will be streamed for free this year. For previous BlizzCons, you could watch the opening ceremony for free, but you would then have to buy a virtual ticket to watch anything else. This year, it looks like watching everything is going to be free, but if you want to have the in-game goodies or early access to BlizzCon merch, you will still have to pick up a virtual ticket, and we'll get more info on that later. So you really only need to pay for the extra stuff, and if all you want to do is watch all of the announcements live and the good stuff that's going to be coming out, that's going to be completely free, which is definitely nice to see. If you do want to try for a BlizzCon ticket, they're going to be sold in 2 batches. The first will be on July 8th and the second round will be July 22nd. These things sell out fast. They're usually sold out within minutes from what I remember in past years, so you'll need to mark your calendars for those ticket sale dates and times. But that's all of our updates for this week, so that's it for this video. What are you most looking forward to in patch 10.1.5? Are there any classes that you still think need some buffs or nerfs? And how do you feel about the BlizzCon ticket prices? Is that too much for the in-person experience, or are you still going to try and snag a ticket for this year, even if it costs you $300 or $800? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to all of our members here on YouTube. You can see the names floating by on screen. If you'd like to add your name to the end of every video and a special shout out at the start of the next video, you can find links in the description over to Patreon or click the join button just below this video. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I'll see you next time.